We'll begin our Board of Supervisors meeting April 12th, 2011. It's about 7:03 p.m. We'll start with the salute to the flag, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you. Mrs. Pullen, can you call the roll, please?
Mr. Zupka?
Here.
Mrs. Wisłowski?
Here.
Mr. Harvey?
Here.
Mr. Dents?
Here.
Mr. Snipes?
Here.
All right, thank you. I'm going to begin. This is one of the more more fun meetings, I guess, we have here. Where we get a chance to recognize the officers here in our township and others here in our township for actions that they've done above and beyond in the service of this community. And so it's my pleasure to turn the program over to our Chief of Police, Bill Wilcox, who will be conducting this award ceremony.
Thank you, Mr. Harvey. Members of the board, Mr. Chairman, Mrs. Poland, Mr. Gray, Mr. Clark, Mr. Sullivan, members of the community, family and friends. Tonight we're here to honor our colleagues as we do every year. It's become a ritual and a great tradition to give recognition where recognition is due. But tonight we're just going to change it up a little bit. We're going to bring back a friend and a colleague here to be sworn in tonight, and the Judge Wisłowski, who was so gracious to come here tonight on her own time, and we can't thank her enough for coming here this evening. So, Jim, could you come up? Judge?
Officer McCaffrey, welcome back. Do you remember the last time we saw each other?
I do not, I'm sorry.
I do remember. It was in Newtown.
Okay, if you will place your hand on the Bible and raise your right hand and repeat after me.
I, James McCaffrey,
Of Ivyland, Pennsylvania,
of Ivyland, Pennsylvania,
being duly appointed
as a police officer of Falls Township,
Falls Township,
in Bucks County, Pennsylvania,
do
solemnly swear
and affirm
that I will support, obey, and defend
that I will support, obey, and defend
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of this Commonwealth,
and the Constitution of this Commonwealth,
and that I will
discharge the duties
of police officer
of Falls Township
with fidelity,
that I have not paid
or
contributed
or promised to pay
or contribute
either directly or indirectly
any money or other valuable thing
to procure my appointment.
I
have not knowingly
violated any law
of this Commonwealth
or procured it
to be done
by others in my behalf, that I will not knowingly
receive directly or indirectly
any money or other valuable thing
for the performance
or
non-performance
of any act
or duty
pertaining to my appointment
other than the compensation
allowed by law. I, James McCaffrey,
affirm that I will uphold,
obey, and enforce
the law without consideration
to a person's race,
to a person's race,
color,
color,
sex,
sex,
religious creed, religious creed,
sexual orientation,
age,
national origin,
ancestry, handicap,
or disability.
Congratulations.
Thank you, Judge.
Thank you, Judge. Welcome aboard, Jay.
Thank you.
Chief, there's one for you.
Welcome back.
Also in the gym, okay?
Judge.
You broke it, you bought it. Your mother's funeral, your dad needed you. Welcome back. I hated to see you.
So next part of our program this evening, it'll be our award ceremony. To anybody that doesn't know how our award ceremony works, it works during the year. Supervisors, anybody can nominate any officer for what they consider distinguished service. And it goes before a panel. The panel consists of an administrator, a supervisor, and an officer, together with myself. I moderate the panel. They decide whose incident rises to the level to receive this award. They're pretty tough. And this year is what you'll see is the result of the nominations. We're going to start with a life-saving award. Could Officer Lundquist and Sergeant Finelli step up here, please? On Thursday, April 1st, at approximately 3:41 hours, Officer Lundquist was dispatched to a medical call for a female having respiratory problems. Upon his arrival, the officer assessed the patient and began to obtain a medical history when the female became unconscious. Officer Lundquist summoned additional help and they began to perform CPR. When he arrived, in his report, he said, "When I arrived, I took over chest compressions to relieve the detailed officer." This was Sergeant Finelli. However, after the short time I had to be relieved, and Officer Lundquist took over without hesitation. He then assisted the rescue squad packing the patient for transport. The victim was transported to a local hospital where doctors were able to reestablish life signs. I believe that without immediate life-saving actions taken by Officer Lundquist, the victim's chance of survival would have been zero. For that reason, I request that he be considered for a life-saving award. I may also add that this is not easy. The stress that goes on when you're performing CPR is I did it 3 times in my career, and I haven't been successful like Officer Lundquist and Sergeant Finelli have. Great job, guys. You could step over here and at the end.
Back in the building, make sure you don't run.
Officer Caesar, Officer Lundquist, could you step out here again? This is your night tonight. And Officer Langen.
Jonathan, I haven't seen you for
Still here.
On December 14th, at approximately 0140 hours, Bucks County Radio dispatched officers to an apartment in response to a suicidal subject armed with a knife. While the officers were en route, the dispatcher advised that a female on scene was wrestling with a male in an attempt to wrestle the knife away from him before he could stab himself. The first 2 officers to arrive, Officer Caesar and Officer Lundquist, immediately entered the apartment without thought of their own safety in order to protect innocent people on scene and prevent the subject from hurting himself or rendering aid to the subject if he had harmed himself. Once inside the apartment, they were directed to the back bedroom where they located the suicidal subject. Distraught and crying, laying on his back in the bed, They attempted to speak with him. The subject began to stab himself. Both officers took immediate action and were able to prevent the subject from doing more harm to himself. However, the subject continued to struggle while still armed with the knife. At this time, Officer Langen entered the bedroom and found Caesar and Lundquist struggling with the armed subject. He took immediate action, and between all three of them were able to gain control of the subject with the knife. The subject was subsequently transported to Lower Bucks Hospital for treatment of minor wounds. It is my belief if these officers had not acted as they had to overcome what would have been tragically different. Instead, the subject only suffered minor wounds, is now in his position to get himself the much needed help he requires. The officer recommended this, said, "Chief, I believe that the selfish acts of these three officers, Officer Caesar, Lundquist, and Langwin, went above and beyond their call of duty and averted what could have been a tragedy. I also feel they should be recognized for their actions." Great job, man. What the officers are receiving are what they're called unit citations. There's two. Could you gentlemen step over here? Officer Dietrich, could you step up here, please? On Friday, February 4th, 2011, Bucks County Radio dispatched a report of a shooting. Advised that the male subject was armed with a black handgun, fired shots inside the bar before fleeing. The shooter was identified, who was also a suspect in a shooting which had occurred earlier in the day in Bristol Township. Several officers were also dispatched. The most noteworthy of these tasks was the apprehension of the shooter by Officer Dietrich. Believing the subject still to be armed with a firearm, Officer Dietrich displayed courage, restraint, good judgment, and sound tactics in the course of searching for, locating, and apprehending the shooter. It is my recommendation that Officer Dietrich be recognized for his exceptional actions. As we all know, one of the main jobs that we do is traffic enforcement. And in doing traffic enforcement, that calls for DUI arrest. Bruce, could you step up here, please? Every year, an officer is recognized in our police department by the Mothers Against Drunk Drivers. For the last 2 years, Officer Redonda has averaged at least 17 arrests. Bruce, for your outstanding service to the municipality and Mothers Against Drunk Drivers. These two certificates and a certificate of merit. Thanks, Bruce. Finally, this evening, we all know we just finished helping the president out. And I have to tell you that it went almost flawlessly. But it went flawlessly because of two members of our police department here, Lieutenant Ward and Lieutenant Airy. I have to tell everybody in this room what an exceptional job that they did, how they interacted with all the different police agencies. They did a wonderful job with the Secret Service, and I can't say enough good things about them. So I just would like everybody to know that. Henry. I have to tell you, year in and year out, it's an honor to represent these guys here. They do a great job. There was other people who received accolades here, but they just didn't rise to the level in this. They all received recognition that'll go in their files. Everybody, this all goes in their files. but I have to tell you that you have a great police department here, and thank you.
What are all these people? Nothing on here. No, okay. So, she's showing it to people right now.
You could replay clinic like you want.
It's he's struggling.
Come on, yeah, you're on call it there, on
We're working here, Chief. Good to see you, sir. Good job, Chief.
You look wonderful.
They're done already. Yeah, they started 7 and had one item.
I'm thinking he starts
I would think he knows. You never know that with Tommy Miles.
Members of the board, I know you have the rest of your meeting, but we are having refreshments and sandwiches. You're certainly welcome to come over.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Bring some back for us.
Sure.
I think Pete just soiled himself.
I know he did.
He may be buying dinner tonight, by the way. Be buying dinner tonight. You don't think so?
All right, as I said, this is always one of the more enjoyable meetings of the year when we get a chance to recognize the work of our officers on the Falls Township Police Department, and congratulations to all of them. Thank them. We should all thank them for the wonderful job they do keeping our community as safe as it can be. We'll move on to our first agenda item, which is to consider traffic planning design proposal for engineering services for the traffic signal improvement project. This would be the replacement and improvement of the traffic signal located at New Falls and Tyburn Roads. Mr. Gray?
Yes, in a memo from Tony Doherty at Traffic Planning and Design dated March 11, a proposal was prepared for the New Falls Road, Tyburn Road Traffic Signal Improvement Project and Village at Nottingham Streetlight Replacement Project. This includes construction bidding, contract administration, and contract oversight services. Cost of this proposal is $34,800. The board is asked to consider this proposal at this time. Here to discuss this further is Mr. Tony Doherty from TPD.
Okay. Mr. Doherty, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Good
If
evening.
you could just be giving us an idea as to what traffic planning design's role would be. Mr. Gray obviously went through it, kind of just briefly, but in more specifics, I guess, how long will it take to go through your process in this, and how long till the traffic light is replaced, and I guess what improvements are we making at that light?
Sure. Yeah, I can give you a brief description. And basically, the proposal we prepared actually accommodates two separate projects, as Mr. Gray noted. One of them is the traffic signal at New Falls and Tyburn Road, and the other is replacement of some street lights in the village of Nottingham. The part that you spoke of regarding the traffic signal, basically the existing signal is reaching the end of its service life, so a lot of the components, electrical components, need to be replaced. Things such as the LED lenses for each color light itself and each signal head, wiring, conduit, a new controller cabinet, also safety features such as emergency preemption of the traffic signal and battery backup power, for the signal itself. That's basically what the improvements are. It is a project we designed a little while ago. We also tried to fill out a grant application from the Toll Bridge Commission to construct these improvements, which we were not successful in obtaining. At this point, sometime earlier this year, we were asked by Mr. Arneo to prepare a proposal to put this project out to bid, in addition to replacement of some of the streetlights in the village at Nottingham. That's a brief summary of what the projects will entail. Specifically, what our services will entail is we will be preparing construction documents and bidding documents for each of these projects. As I stated, the traffic signal design for the improvements has already been completed. Basically, what this proposal will cover is putting together the documents that go out to bid to the contractors. Included in that would be preparing the advertisement, the technical specifications, and all the contract language that goes along with that. We would also work with Mr. Gray and Mr. Arneo to develop a bidding schedule of when we would like to have advertisements, when it will be advertised, when we would like bids due, any pre-bid meeting and whatnot, and coordinate all those activities. And receive the bids, evaluate the bids, and select a successful contractor and do all the contract award that's necessary for those contracts. Also included in this proposal is services for inspection of the construction, basically being on site with a representative to verify that all the improvements are being done in accordance with the technical specifications, the contract documents, and the plans that have been prepared.
Okay. All right, thank you. We'll go to board members for comment. Mr. Zipka?
No, I have none.
Mr. Snipes?
Yeah, are there any, could you give us a few more details about the street light replacement in Nottingham, or maybe Bob, maybe you can comment on that, living in the neighborhood?
Well, I'll let Mr. Doherty go, and I can add any commentary.
Yeah, I'll do the best I can. Obviously, we still have a lot more coordination to do with Mr. Arneo on that, but we went out and viewed the site with him, and there's several street lights that need to be replaced, as well as some of the electrical components to upgrade those lights from their current status, and also providing more energy efficient LED modules for those as well. Did I get that about right?
Yeah, the street lights, some of them were the old sort of more decorative type of street lights that were probably original, so 30 years ago, if not a little bit more, 31 years ago, maybe something like that. And there's a considerable amount of rust on a lot of them, and some of them I'm a little concerned about the structural stability of, put it that way. But I think Mr. Arneo actually had this on his list of projects to address anyway.
Yes, he did.
Yeah, I mean, I was actually I had some residents in that area complain to me about them, and I mentioned it to Mr. Gray, and Mr. Gray subsequently found out that Mr. Arneo was scheduled to replace those anyway. So,
yeah. In addition to the poles, I think there's a couple electrical components that need to be replaced, like junction boxes and conduits and the connections as well, that are being upgraded and repaired.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. For the traffic light, excuse me, I know there have been a number of pretty serious accidents at that light. I don't know when the last one was. I think it's going back maybe a couple years now. But there have been a number of them, pretty serious accidents. I'm wondering how these changes what kind of impact do you think that will have? Some of the accidents may be due to the topography there rather than anything to do with the light, but maybe you could comment on that more.
Yeah, and as part of this project, we haven't really prepared an accident analysis or a crash summary to determine those type of impacts. This is basically a modernization of a lot of the electrical components, and what this will enable the signal to do is operate more efficiently from an electrical standpoint and a cost standpoint, but also make sure that the signal will operate reliably for the next several years, so that you won't have any issues with certain components going out. The LED lights are more energy efficient and also more reliable, will last a lot longer, are a lot brighter. So it's hard to say and predict exactly what the improvement will be as far as the intersection goes and the crashes that occur there. But these improvements that are being done are more cosmetic and internal and electrical, and we're not really making changes to the design of the intersection per se.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Dents?
No questions.
And I guess the only question I had, you mentioned a battery backup for the new light. So in other words, I think the current light does not have any kind of battery backup?
That's correct.
All right, so if there's some kind of power outage, the lights are out. And that's obviously not an intersection. Anybody that knows who goes through it, not an intersection where you want to be having light problems. Okay.
Correct. And the emergency preemption will also enable emergency services to get through that intersection a lot faster, which will help in the general scheme of things throughout the township.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. I've had board comments. Is there any public comment needed? See one hand. Is there a motion to open public comment?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Yes.
The intersection of Tyburn Road and New Falls are state roads, are they not?
Yes.
Is the state not kicking in any money to take care of that?
The signals, I believe, are our responsibility. Mr. Doherty, is that correct?
That's correct. Yes, traffic signals are owned and operated by the municipalities. PennDOT has approval authority over them and their design, but the overall responsibility for maintenance is on the municipality.
Because I've lived in that area 30-some years, and it seems more that it's the grading of the intersection than the lights. And if you wanted to do something at Trenton Road and Tyburn Road where it gridlocks, is where it really needs to be addressed, because if you've got an emergency vehicle to come through there, it can't get through at the other end. That seems like more of a concern. Have you looked at that?
And at this time,
You have to use, I'm sorry, Mr. Doherty, you have to use the microphone.
sorry. At this time, we have not. We were really looking to upgrade the electrical components at this intersection at this point. This was one of the projects that Mr. Arneo had on his list of items to look at. I can certainly discuss with him the other intersections. And
the other intersection, if you hit that at rush hour, and I think everybody here has used it once or twice, it just gridlocks. You can't even, when you get the green light, you can't even go. It needs some type of right turn lane and all. And I don't think changing that light and not changing the grade is going to be much help, other than having the LED and the preemptive that's only going to take you up where it's gridlocked. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other public comment? I see no hands. Is there a motion to close public comment?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, so we have the submission here from Traffic Planning and Design, explanation from Mr. Doherty regarding the improvement to that traffic signal as well as to the streetlights in Nottingham. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the proposal from Traffic Planning and Design at the cost estimate of $34,800.
I'll second it.
All right, motion made and seconded. Mrs. Pullen?
Mr. Zepko?
Yes.
Mrs. Wisłowski? Mr. Harvey?
Yes.
Mr. Dents?
Yes.
Mr. Snipes?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Doherty. Appreciate it.
thank you very much. Have a good evening.
Okay. Item 2 on our agenda is consider approving our FX Brown for Act 101, Section 904 Recycling Performance Grant. Mr. Gray, can you explain this to us, please?
Yes. Township received 2 quotes for the 2010 Recycling Performance Grant application. Of the 2 quotes, the first quote from FX Brown was $2,500. Second quote from Huff Associates was $5,000. At this time, the board is asked to consider FX Brown for the Recycling Performance Grant application. In addition, tonight is Ms. Leeson Cummings from FX Brown and Ms. Betsy Rucall from the Finance Department.
Okay. Mr. Rukoff, if you wouldn't mind letting us know exactly what a recycling performance grant is.
Okay. That's why I brought Leeson.
Well, then I'll turn over to her if that's fine, if that's what you'd like to
I'll
do.
give you a brief introduction. Basically, we need them to help us obtain the valid documentation of the 2010 tonnages from our local haulers that haul within the township. They then prepare the application for the Act 101 grant, and they compile all the documentation for us. And they also make recommendations on how to increase those numbers. It is money well spent. The grants usually run around $90,000.
Okay. All right.
For more details, Leeson can answer your questions.
All right. Okay. Ms. Cummings, just, I guess, let us know, has your company done this work for us before?
Yes, we did.
Okay.
The last one we did was in 2008, and the estimated grant monies that we got for Falls Township was approximately $90,000. It's
Okay.
$89,324.
Okay. All right. All right. Comments or questions from board members for Ms. Cummings or Mrs. Rukoff? Mr. Zupka?
No, I have none.
Mr. Snipes?
Yes, could you just, I'm sorry, could you just repeat again what the grant will cover?
Sure. The grant is offered by DEP, and it's offered to municipalities. There's 3 calculations that are performed based on the population of the township and based on the tonnage that's collected, both from residential and commercial. And through those calculations, they determine how much your municipality is awarded.
And how are we restricted in use of the funds?
I believe that there is no restrictions on it.
No restriction whatsoever.
Let me
So is this in essence an incentive? Or how would you just, Mrs. Rukoff, or either one?
Correct. In order to be eligible for the grant monies, there are certain requirements that you have to do, such as having a recycling ordinance, having a recycling program, doing education, things like that. That is why they're offering the incentive, because they want the municipalities to be educating the public and increasing their recycling numbers for the state.
Thank you. I don't know whether anyone saw in the, I think it was in the Inquirer today or yesterday, about another recycling facility coming somewhere in the Philadelphia area, working with Waste Management. Mrs. Rukoff, could you explain exactly what that facility is? Is this a private company?
No, I believe that it was related to Waste Management, actually. I didn't think that it was a private company. It was a sorting facility.
Okay.
And they were going to be able to handle quite a lot of tonnage, more than the facility that we currently have.
Okay, I guess so. The point being, this is obviously an up-and-coming business, and as it should be. So that's all I have, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Dents?
No.
Okay. Is there any public comment needed? I see no hands. All right, then. The memo we have from Mrs. Rukoff, which was to Mr. Gray, cites that FX Brown has submitted a proposal for $2,500 to put together all the work for this grant. The other company that submitted a proposal was for twice as much money. And FX Brown is a company that we have used in the past, and I'm presuming because they're standing in front of us now that we're pretty happy with what they've done. So is there a motion then from the board?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion that we approve the proposal for $2,500 from FX Brown, Inc. regarding the 2010 Recycling Performance Grant application.
I'll second it.
Motion made and seconded. Mrs. Poland?
Mr. Zupka?
Yes.
Mrs. Wislowski? Mr. Harvey?
Yes.
Mr. Dents?
Yes.
Mr. Snipes?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much, ladies.
Thank you very much.
Okay, item 3 on our agenda is to consider Quaker Pen boat ramp policies and procedures. As we know, after several years of planning and working with the state and also, I guess, federal agencies, the Quaker Pen boat ramp is nearing completion, just probably a few weeks away. And we have been asked both by the media and by, at least I have, and I think other board members have too, about different policies and procedures that will be put in place for people who would like to use the boat ramp facilities. And so that's what we want to have a discussion on this evening, is taking a look at some of those policies and procedures for the boat ramp. Mr. Gray, anything to add? Or
Mr. Reese has prepared a proposed policy and procedure guides for the Quaker Pen boat ramp. The board is asked to consider these policies and procedures.
Okay. All right. I know we do have a map, photograph there behind where Mr. Sullivan's sitting, and I see an easel up here. I was wondering if I might be able to put that up there so members of the public can see it. Thank you, Mr. Sullivan. That's good. All right, Mr. Reese, if you wouldn't mind, just kind of running through with us some of the things we're looking for here. What we're looking at in our policies and procedures, we'll just start sort of hours of operation and I guess time of the year too. Just kind of run through that with us.
Yes, we're looking at April 15th through October 15th will be the, from year to year. Obviously, we're probably not going to, we might not make April 15th this year, but I think we're looking to open as soon as towards the end of April. And it will be open 7 days a week and 24 hours a day during that time period.
Okay. And there are docks that are going to be placed there, for,
Right.
floating docks basically, and those docks will be removed in roughly mid-October.
Correct.
And then sort of put back in place in mid-April.
Correct.
So this is a facility, obviously, that's sort of using at your own risk.
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely.
And I think on this photograph here, there are some signs, tentative. I'll make sure that people are aware I use that term, tentative signs, that some of the language might still be playing around with a little bit. Some of the signs will be placed down in various locations at this park, so people are aware of this is a park you enjoy at your own risk. There are various kind of rules, obviously, for people's safety and the safety of whether your boat's in the water, or you're trying to put your boat in the water, et cetera. We don't have to necessarily run through all the signs, but I guess in terms of what people are most interested in is paying. How much? What would the fees be? What would the cost
Well,
be?
right now we're looking at for daily fees will be $10 for residents and $20 for non-residents, and a yearly fee will be $75 for residents and $150 for non-residents.
Okay. And how would if you are, let's see, if you get a yearly pass, let's say season pass, you'll get a sticker, correct, for your trailers?
Right, and you would, if you're a resident, then you would have to call the township building to get a code number, and then you would keep that code number, and then when you go down and pay at the kiosk, then it would register you as a resident, and then
Yeah, for this and for the season passes you would buy here at the township building.
Yes.
You'd get a sticker to place on your trailer. In terms of, I guess, enforcement, how's the enforcement going to work in terms of making sure?
we could have Don Erie maybe approach that.
Okay, Lieutenant, excuse me, Lieutenant Erie.
Enforcement will be done by the police department. Parking regulations are going to have to be clearly posted, as all parking regulations have to be. Vehicles with trailers will be required to have a permit. Vehicles that disregard this regulation will be cited by the police department, and will use the present township parking ordinance, which is 203, to cite and enforce.
Okay, and it won't be an officer stationed permanently at Quaker Penn, but on their rounds, obviously, that's what they do anyway. They're down at Quaker Penn periodically anyway on their rounds, correct?
That is correct, yes.
Okay. Now, what if, in terms of Mr. Reese, if a park and rec park guard is down there and does see some kind of situation, obviously their responsibility would be to call the police department. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. Okay. And Mr. Reese mentioned a kiosk, and that's something that we're going to be taking up with our next agenda item. For those increasingly at public parking places, you see these kiosks where you're putting, putting in money. You're getting some kind of a tag or some kind of a sticker that basically allows you to park for that specific area. You're getting something. That's what we're looking at here. And so, for getting a day pass, you would be going to that kiosk. You're putting in money. You would be able to take credit cards, and you would be able to get it'll spit out basically a ticket or a sticker or something that you'll be able to put on your vehicle, so that the police and Park and Rec will see that you may not have a season pass, but you do have a pass for the day, and it would be good for that day and that day only. Let's see, and I cover just a little bit of stuff, and I want to, with other board members, allow other board members to have some questions, and also see if there's any public comment. Mr. Zupka, comments or questions?
Thank you. While I do believe, I'm going to say 95, 99% of the boaters that will be using the ramp do it to enjoy themselves and will take care of everything and try to keep it clean and maintain their own equipment. But if you've ever gone to Linden Avenue in Philadelphia and watch what goes on down there. If you've ever gone over Rancocas Creek and watch what happens with some of the public boat ramps there, we have all the regulations. I really feel, especially now that we're saying it's going to be open 24 hours and we have lights there, we need somebody there full-time. Maybe not 24 hours, but at least for the majority of the hours of operation, not just somebody coming in and patrolling. Maybe it doesn't have to be one of our police officers, but a park guard that's there, that's stationed there, that has the ability, if he has to actually get the police over there. But you're, again, I think it's going to be a very, very small percentage, but we're basically opening this up where I think we're, and even if it's just a matter of protecting, I shouldn't say protecting, but so our own residents or non-residents who want to use it don't have to put up with any of the loiterers or the lurkers who go there, or some of the people who just go there to maybe to break the rules. I just feel unless we address having somebody there, I'll say full time. Again, not meaning 24 hours a day, but they're not coming in and just for a short time and leaving again. I mean, frankly, if you go down Linden Avenue, they have two police officers, in their own vehicles there all the time. When they change shifts, they change the officers. And yes, I'm not a boater. The only thing I know about boats are they float, and I know people enjoy themselves on there. But there has to be some reason that even over in New Jersey or Delaware, the public ramps, the ones I've seen. They have somebody there full-time for security. And I really feel that needs to be addressed. I can understand, we can have all the regulations we want, but being able to control what's going on is another issue. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Snipes?
Yes, Mr. Reese. I thought it said here in your memo to us that the passes would not be available at the Township building. They will be available to be purchased here, or they will not be available?
They will be, yeah.
I think we're talking about the yearly passes.
Right.
That can be purchased here, and then the daily passes can be done down at the kiosk.
Right.
Correct. There was discussion back and forth, but that's how it ended up.
So someone pulls up with a trailer, they don't have their pass. It says here they can't park or they'll be fine, but I'm assuming if they park and they're going to go get their pass, and that'll be fine. If they are just sneaking onto the ramp and going to put in the water and go, the deterrent for that is the signage, and also the ramp itself is going to have video surveillance, correct? So we get a sense that a lot of boats are going out without permits. We'll know that.
Right, then when my park security staff comes by or the police comes by on their patrols, and they're going to check and make sure that there's each boat trailer has a sticker on it. And if they don't, then that's where the police will get involved.
And how do you envision the scheduling or the staggering of the police department as opposed to the park security staff? How often will they be circulating through? Are they doing it back to back, or?
I don't think we've. Yeah, for the police, they're just going to do their routine patrol, and for my park security staff, we'll probably get down every 2 hours or so. But we'll try to stagger it so when the police are there, that we're not there.
Okay. So the police
much as possible. So
would
we have
circulate. The police would circulate through how many times in a 24-hour period?
Well, I'm not sure we want to say that, quite frankly. Yeah, but
well,
it will be a periodic.
Is it every 15 minutes or is it every 2 hours? I mean, it's
that's not going to be every 15 minutes. I wouldn't think. No.
I mean, so we can say it's a regular intervals.
Yeah.
All right. And then you're saying the park staff is going to be there for a block of 2 hours at some point?
From the time from basically 8 o'clock in the morning till dusk, they'll be there. Somebody will be driving by every at the most every 2 hours. Sometimes it could be an hour and a half.
Oh, I'm saying.
We want to try to stagger it so people don't get used to this.
All right, so they'll come through every hour and a half to 2
Yeah.
hours. Okay. Okay, I think those are my questions right now. Thank you.
Okay, sure.
Okay. Mr. Dents?
This is obviously something brand new, all these rules, and that we will have to be tweaking as we go. Obviously, we're not going to get it perfect the first time, I would think, as much as we would like to. As for someone being there full-time, we were advised that we shouldn't do that by our insurance adjuster, that it was a bad idea to have someone full-time, and he advised us against that. That's about all I have. I will also add that there are cameras, it says video surveillance. Video surveillance is something that the police can actually pull up in their squad cars. If there was an issue down there and someone called, they can actually pull it right up in their car, the camera at the boat ramp or any of the other cameras that we have in the township. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you. Mrs. Kozlowski? We're looking at agenda item number 3.
I realize what the subject is. I have no comment.
Okay. Yeah, I appreciate the point Mr. Dents brought up. I was going to bring up as well that, the surveillance is something that can be pulled up by our police department at any time, anywhere, no matter where they are in the township. And I remember, again, Mr. Dents already said it, but, this is something, it probably will be a work in progress. And Mr. Zupka raised the issue of putting somebody there full-time, and I think what we're trying to do now is give sort of a maximum amount of freedom to people that want to use this park. We do have somebody who works for T&M who is an avid boater, and we were relying on him a lot in terms of his pretty vast experiences up and down the Delaware with all kinds of different boat ramps and different policies and procedures. And he was giving us a lot of good information about what he thought would be appropriate, and we're kind of going with him, and we discussed the fact that by leaving it this open, if we start to see problems, we can start tailoring back in terms of hours of operation. And in addition, I think if, as Mr. Dent said, our insurance company, insurance actually, our premiums would skyrocket upward if we actually manned this for a consistent period of time. Similar to the skate park when that opened up. Right. We were told that if we station somebody there all the time, it's going to be much more of an insurance liability for us, because the presumption is if we're stationing somebody there that person's in charge and constantly watching everything, and if anything goes wrong at all, it's going to be that person's fault because they weren't doing their job. And obviously we want to try to avoid that. But, again, if we see that there's a need for something like that, that's something we can move into later on. Let's see. Public comment. Is there any public comment needed? I see a couple hands. Motion to open public comment?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Mr. Wilson?
The sticker system that you're going to have is not going to be on the boat. It's going to be on a trailer.
On the trailer.
And like Mr. Zupka said, I don't know if anybody's been down to Linden Avenue or in the Chamonix State Park. They're a nightmare. The state doesn't even run it anymore. They leased out in the Chamonix State Park. Mm-hmm. State police were there all the time. The arrests were... This boat ramp is for everybody but the residents of Falls. And if you open it 24 hours a day, do you know of any other ones that are in the area open 24 hours a day?
I believe the Chamonix is open 24 hours a day.
It is?
Yeah.
And that's
In Linden,
private.
too?
I don't know if Linden's open 24 hours a day. You can get out. I don't know if you can get in.
Yeah, I don't think so.
They close the gate sometimes they don't.
Yeah, I think you'll be the only one on the East Coast that's open 24 hours a day. But
I'm sure there are other boat ramps on the East Coast of the United States that are open 24 hours a day, but
right.
we know for a fact that Neshaminy is. But
well, he's saying it's not.
No, it is.
Linden. He said Linden's
is open.
not.
Linden's not.
Linden, he's not sure
Chamonix
about.
open 24 hours to get in and out?
Correct. There's only a guy there.
Trailing your boat, or your boat being docked there?
I don't think you can dock there. I think it's just trailering.
They used to dock there.
Yeah, I don't think they dock anymore. I know trailering, it's open 24/7. Sometimes there's a man there that collects the fees. I think they charge $10 a day. Sometimes there isn't. If there's nobody there, you just go in and out.
And you're not going to sticker the boats, just the trailers?
Just the trailer, so we know that the trailer at least was paid.
But the boat could be anybody's boat on that trailer, right?
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Mariani?
never in favor of this boat ramp, but since it's here, then I think at the very least, we have to do something to mitigate the tax burden that we're going to get hit with because of this. First, I don't agree with your insurance company. The first thing I have on my list, at the very least, I think it should be manned. And aside from the safety reasons, I'll tell you why it should be manned. I'm glad you're charging a fee, because that's extremely important, because it's when you think of eternal life, I think of a government program and then the taxes to support it, because it goes on, and they're all covered by a manual of immortality. So since you're going to charge, there are different ones. Like, for instance, Gloucester, they charge $12 a launch, $150 for the season. The Chamonix has that, West Deptford. Burlington, I think, has an excellent program. They have daily and seasonal, and they have citizens, senior citizens, people that from outside the township, and then again, people who are outside of the state. And when this board was on a campaign to build this boat ramp, I only saw 2 people attend this meeting that were in favor of it. Both of them from New Jersey boat clubs were here. And their reason for coming here and wanting the boat ramp is because they thought their fees were too high. Now, I think that the boat ramp should require registration prior to launch. That's why I think we should have someone there. In addition to safety, I really don't agree with the insurance companies. Somebody comes there to launch their boat, someone ought to be there to register these people. And I'd be particularly interested in that, because I'd like to know how many people are going to be Falls Township residents using this boat ramp, as opposed to people who are not going to be Falls Township residents. And I could tell you tonight that within a year, you'll find out what you've done is built a regional boat ramp. I hope I'm wrong, but I don't think so. But I'd like to see you say they have to register, because I'm a taxpayer, and what you refer to as we could afford this amenity, I'm a taxpayer, not Santa Claus. I don't have reindeer pulling my car around. So I'd like to see those fees substantially to maintain this boat ramp. And if we can't charge the fees to maintain it, then we shouldn't have it. Thank you.
Okay. I have a question. Mr. Mariani, before you walk away. When you say register, you mean register the boat with the township?
No. I mean, if I come there to launch my boat, okay, you have someone that's stationed there, and I don't think it should be open 24 hours a day. I really don't think that's a good idea. Dawn to dusk, fine. You go to the man that's there, before you launch your boat, you pay your fee, and then you register. My name is Mr. Dents. I am a resident of Falls. My name is so-and-so. I'm a resident of New Jersey. Well, your fee is $25 a day, or $200 for a seasonal pass. And by the end of a year, you'll find out how many residents of Falls Township are using this ramp, as opposed to those who don't live here and are using it. Believe me when I tell you, you have enough ramps out there right now. You have enough access to the Delaware to satisfy the 6th Fleet. That's why I was opposed to us getting involved. I think it's going to wind up being a regional thing. It's here, so let's support it. Let's charge what it takes to maintain it, since it's here.
Okay. We'll be able to, I understand what you're saying about registering at the ramp. We will be able to keep track in the sense that when you're buying your pass at the township building, we'll know who's a resident and who isn't. The same with buying the day pass. If you're buying at the kiosk, you're going to be paying $20.
Yeah, but
so if you're a resident, you'll be coming to the township building, would make more sense, because you're going to pay $10 at the township building. And that doesn't mean that you can't stop from calling me and saying, can you get me some passes? You know, I'm sure that stuff will go on. And I understand your point, but
I'd like to see you pull up to the ramp and then say, who are you? I'm Mr. Dents. I live in Falls Township, and this is where I live.
No, I understand.
And then if you do something wrong, I know where to find you.
Got you.
Okay. Thank you. Yep. Is there public comment? See no hands. Is there a motion to close public comment?
So moved.
Seconded.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. I respect the opinions, all good opinions, and as Mr. Dents has said, and I've said as well, it'd be nice if we got this perfect, the first time. I think I remember hearing somebody say the last perfect law that was passed the first time was carried down by some guy named Moses on 2, stone tablets. So we'll see. I don't think this is going to quite meet that measure, but we're going to do our best, and it is something we can change when we need to change it. And I appreciate the work Mr. Reese has put in, as well as the people from TNM. In terms of these policies and procedures, Mr. Clark, I guess we're approving these this evening, or does the Park and Rec Director have the authority to sort of approve, kind of grant these on his own? Or
In light of the fact that you will be setting fees and other regulations that will govern the boat ramp, it would be appropriate for the board to adopt these policies this evening.
All right, thank you. All right, with that, is there a motion by a member of the board?
Mr. Chairman, make a motion that we adopt the Quaker Penn Boat Dock proposed policies and procedures as given to us in the memo dated April 8th, 2011, covering hours of operation, signage, and enforcement. Including fees, I'm sorry,
yeah.
including fees.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, motion made and seconded. Mrs. Pullen?
Mr. Zupka?
For the reasons I stated before about the security, I vote no.
Mrs. Kozlowski?
I want this in the minutes, Mrs. Pullum. I am cautioning the people of Falls Township that we are opening up a can of worms that's going to be very, very, very costly to us in the future. And when I talk to people, very few of them have boats. They would rather see the money used for some other purpose. And the thing that sickens me the most, there sits a man right there in the second row, Alan Wilson, who helped to bring the money into this township that they're spending. And you were the one that, we were $32 million in debt. You were a member of this board. I was not. I had given up politics and my interest in the government in Falls. And it was you who came to the meeting and snookered the members of the Democratic Club into opening up the meetings one more time. They had adjourned for the year. And then we did the $95 million in that agreement, the 1995 agreement, and we wiped out our $32 million debt, and then we ended up more than $32 million in the black at the end of that year after that agreement was signed. And it sickens me to see people on this board buying everything because they never earned the money. They never brought a dime into this township. And I don't vote on most of these things. We'd all like to drive a Rolls Royce, but I drive a 1990 van. And I have a Ford car, a little Ford, I don't even know what the model is, but it's a 2000 year. And it does well for me. I get 33 miles to the gallon. I don't have to drive something fancy. And with the economy the way it is, I really believe that the people are disgusted when they see the squandering of our money. And there was a joke, and this is nothing, not an ethnic thing against Italians, but it reminded me of what we used to joke about when we said Christopher Columbus didn't know where he was going. He didn't know where he was after he got there, and he made the entire trip on someone else's money. And that's exactly what this board's doing. They can't show where they brought in any money. Alan, you started the flow of money. As a matter of fact, you were chairing the meeting when I was out in the hall negotiating with General Motors when they donated $400,000. And it was you and I doing that. We double teamed them. I was not on the board. And I am disgusted, and that's why I don't participate in this. I see all kinds of problems coming when we open up that boat ramp for everyone along the Delaware River. The people of Falls Township will be paying for it. And I think there should have been a study done. We pay a fortune to all the pay-to-play guys to do studies. We should have done a study on how many people own a boat and how many people want to subsidize everybody along the river. But I'll be around to tell you about it. My file cabinets didn't get hurt down in Florida when the tornado hit my house. And I guarantee you, they will all remember, except the minutes are so goofy that you can't even tell what's there. So I'm going to be looking to see if this warning isn't in those minutes, because I never recognize them when I read them. And that's my say on it.
Do you have a vote, Mrs. Kozlowski? You're asked to vote.
I'm voting no.
Okay, thank you.
I thought you would understand that.
Mr. Harvey?
Yes.
Mr. Dents?
Yes.
Mr. Snipes?
Yes, I'd like to say I think it's an excellent and long-awaited addition to our recreational facilities. When Jim Prokopiak and I were first running for office, we met many people who were interested in seeing better access to the river. We finally got it. I'd like to credit Jim this evening for all the hard work that he did, as well as this board. I think it's a great addition to the community.
Right, thank you. Okay, item 4 on our agenda is consider authorization for advertisement for the boat ramp kiosk. Mr. Gray.
Yes, at this time, the board is asked to consider authorizing advertisement for the Quaker Penn boat ramp kiosk. Bid specs will be completed by the township staff. At this time, the board is asked to consider authorizing advertisement on this item.
Okay, and as we said it earlier, just the previous agenda items, kiosk will be something where you'll be able to automatically get a day pass when you go down to the boat ramp using cash. It'll accept cash or credit cards, and it's very much like the kiosk that you see operating in a lot of the parking facilities in Philadelphia, Trenton, other places like that. This is just authorizing advertisement right now. Any comments or questions? Mr. Zupka?
No.
Mrs. Kozlowski?
I don't want any part of it.
This is Mr. Snipes?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. I believe there's a reference in here to how long, if we advertise and then we eventually purchase this, what's our time frame for when we would be able to have this up and running?
Mr. Gray, do we know that off the top of our head?
I believe it's at least 4 weeks.
Okay.
And would the kiosk be available for purchasing day passes as well as the yearly passes?
Just
the day pass.
passes.
Okay.
Seasonal passes you have to get here at the township building.
Which is the same rate for residents and non-residents, correct?
No.
No. Non-residents is $20.
Oh, 20, correct, and 10.
Yeah.
So anyone that purchases it at the kiosk would be paying 20.
Right.
If they want to get it for 10, they would have to buy it at
They would have to come to the township. Okay, I was going to wonder how the kiosk could tell who's a resident and a non-resident.
There were other ideas we kicked around. There was a lot of different options. There was a way that the township could issue someone a PIN number so that the machine would know. But we thought that the easiest way to do it for now was to have the residents buy them at the township building and non-residents, or everyone at the kiosk pay the same rate.
I think it's great.
Can
Again,
change.
I'm totally supportive of it, and I think that the residents of Falls Township deserve the same recreational facilities that are available in other communities. I'm 100% in favor of it.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Mr. Dents, comments or questions?
None.
Okay, and I have none. Public comment needed? See no hands. Is there a motion to authorize advertisement for boat ramp kiosk?
So moved.
Seconded.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Okay.
No.
All right, next item on our agenda is public comment. Asking people to stay to a 5-minute limit. Looking at a 45-minute maximum for the entire period. Mr. Gray is getting the list here. Thank you much, Mr. Gray. Okay. All right. First name on the list is Mr. Latuma. Is that right?
Good evening, gentlemen. I'm resident from Forest Hills for the past 24 years. I moved from New York. Since I came here, I got involved in soccer. I coach in Cabrini. I have a license to be a coach, and I have a license to be a referee. And I started the soccer club, Falls Soccer Club here in Falls in 1998, 1999. I'm the only guy left from that club we start here. And we have like 500-600 kids playing every weekend, every season, spring and a fall, since the age of 3-4 years old until 18 years old. I know Mr. Brian Tolorico, he's the president of Falls Township. He came here many times, I think so, asking you, gentlemen, the board, to do something from the fields. This week I ref some games there. I ref almost every week there because they give me the games in that field because I'm from here. And believe me, that field every year gets so bad. I'm asking the board to do something, and like every year, I don't know who does that, maybe the park and recreation, we close like 2 fields. But they don't do nothing. They just close the field, they let the grass growing, they don't do nothing. Like today is this big rain. Tomorrow, the game is going to be canceled. I'm supposed to have a game tomorrow night. Last week I ref Saturday, they canceled the games in Falls. I went to Corker Park and I ref 2 games there. No problem with the fields. I'm just asking to do a little something for the fields, but not just let the grass grow. They need to be drained because that field's nowhere. If we have a lot of fields, we have 7 or 8 fields, soccer fields. But we can't use, as a phrase, Sunday we were there. They have so many holes. It's danger for the referees to ref games. It's danger for the kids. All the time I see little kids twisting the ankle because there's no level. Soccer fields, I don't want to be perfect, but at least do something because there's a lot of kids from here, from Falls, maybe your nephew, your niece, your son, your grandson playing there. I invite you, all the board, Sunday after 12 o'clock. I invite you guys. Go see how many kids play there. Maybe you never went, because most of you, maybe you don't know what is soccer. But soccer now, and this time, is one of the most sport growing up here. In this area, it's all over the world. Only in America we don't have big, strong soccer. But now the American soccer team is doing very good. And here, all over, because it's less injured and less expensive to play soccer. And the kids like. And I be coaching, I told you, since I came here 24 years ago. That is, I asking from Falls Soccer Club, myself personal, nobody sent me here, but Sunday I got enough. And I coach, I told you, since the club start here. Please do something for the fields. Try to invest something for the kids. It's not for me. It's for you kids, for the future. You have an excellent park over there. I know it's a community park because the club want to do it. Like they told me last year, the club spent, okay, I'm not going to sue how much, but they're not going to do nothing if they go tap a little bit the holes, put a little seeds. No. They have to be redone, most of the fields. If you can do all in one time, try to do like 1 year or 1 season 1. We don't care if they close the fields, but we want these fields taken care a little better. That way the kids can have fun there. That's my request from you guys, and I hope you can hear that. I'm a resident from here for 24 years, okay? Thank you very much for hearing me.
Sir, don't step away, sir. Take a good look at what we're paying for the boat ramp, and then find out how much the boat ramp cost. Everybody doesn't have boats in Falls Township, but everybody has children. We neglect that which is necessary to spend that which we do not need. And that would be a good statistic to show how many children would be using the soccer fields versus how many of those of us who've lived in this township for 50, 60 years, as I have. You're here 30-some years. I resent it. And besides, it's money that I helped to bring in here. These guys they can't show $1 million that they brought into this township. They're spending money that Mr. Wilson and I did, and there's about $400 million that's due to finish trickling in here. And they can't spend it fast enough. Thank you for coming.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Chairman, could I also ask a question?
Go ahead.
I was just curious if you could explain a little bit of what you'd like to see done. You said do something. We have done a number of things, so I'd like to know specifically what you'd like to see done.
The fields, like when it rains a lot, it's like a swamp. The water stay there. This field don't was be like for soccer. You can go see the Jets field, New Fields, and Brownsburg Park, Upper Makefield, 4 years ago. I go ref games. You can see that field is nice because they are drain. They drain the water in the sides of the soccer fields, and they level, and they put everything new material and let the seed grow. Another municipal park in Warminster is 4 years old. I ref games there. It's 100 times better than ours. And ours is 12 years old. I know the township is, but you're not going to do nothing, like I say, if you go put a little topsoil and put seeds, or let just the grass grow. You're not going to do nothing. They have to be level again and do some draining for the waters.
You're talking about drainage.
Yeah, right, I'm not an expert, but you guys can pay somebody to study to see what they can do to upgrade that fields.
That sounds like a good suggestion. I don't know when Mr. Tallarico has been here, if he's talked about drainage or not. I can't remember that.
I talked to Mr. Latuma because my son actually has played at Fall Soccer Club for several years now. And he was actually refereeing the game my son was playing in. And I was helping you a little bit. I tried anyway.
Yeah, flag.
But,
yeah.
But no, I spoke today actually to Mr. Sullivan about maybe taking a look and seeing if there's something we can do about the drainage. Because you're right, it's 12 years old, and probably when they were built 12 years ago, probably they were crowned nice and the water may have come off the way it was supposed to, but after 12 years, and it does get a lot of wear and tear. Obviously, the soccer club, there's adults who go there and play soccer just on their own. There's lacrosse leagues that go there, rugby leagues that go there. There's obviously park and rec facility or activities go on there. So I think probably we do need to really take a real good look at doing something there. So, yeah. But I appreciate
that is going to help. And we're losing, believe me, I told you, we're losing players. And we're losing teams. They prefer to go to YMS, like my son is playing now in Humbeal, because it's danger. You guys, I told you, come one Sunday and see. Please, after 12 o'clock, and see how many kids they use that fields. It's danger for them. Like I'm a coach, I don't want to do, because I'm getting old, I don't want to do the moves because it's so dangerous, it's taken in a little hole and twist my ankle or my knee. That is the only request I ask him. Please.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Latuma. Hey, Mr. Wilson?
I'm listening to the last speaker speak of the soccer fields, and we had a place called the Williams Tract that had soccer fields. It was 13-plus acres, and there was a lot of money spent there. Mr. Snipes sued the township to try and acquire that property, and then I believe you settled something with them?
No, the suit was not
whatever.
continued, correct.
You dropped your suit. But the puzzling part of that whole story is those 13 acres were sold for $375,000. Even in today's depressed market, that property had to be worth much more than that. And I haven't been able
$1 million an acre.
I haven't been able to find out how that property was sold. Do you know if that was sold at a sealed bid?
It was sold before I came on the board, I believe.
Well, I
do we have a record of when that was sold?
I don't have it in front of me because I used to carry that with me because this used to come up every once in a while. Mr. Bergman, Wayne Bergman, when he was the manager, got an appraiser by the name of Frank Mignoni, who was employed by the township. An appraisal was done, and pursuant to the second-class township code, pursuant to purchasing of any property, it was sold for the appraised amount. There was a significant amount of wetlands on the property, which made the building area much less than the 13 acres. And I think, I don't recall what the appraised amount was, but it was not $1 million an acre. It was the amount of $300,000 and some odd thousand.
And just for reference, so people understand, the Williams Tract you're referring to as the Williams Tract is where the current Montessori school sits, right next to the on-ramp for Route 13 off of Tyburn Road. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
All right,
And it's on contaminated land, isn't it, Mr. Wilson?
And, this predates your solicitor also.
Absolutely. And Mignoni's pitiful appraisal.
Money spent down there cleaning that property up. But I haven't heard anyone address how it was sold. Was it sold through a sealed bid,
Mr. Wilson,
or a public auction?
As you've just said, it predated Mr. Clark. Mr. Clark predates everybody up here except for Mr. Zupka.
He said he carries a file.
Except for me. He doesn't predate me.
A member of this board. Ms.
47 years I put in.
You weren't a member of this board at the time.
No, I was doing judging then. My husband had leukemia.
Yes. So, I mean, I believe you were on the board at the time, or roughly the time this project was sold.
That deal was done, I wasn't on the board.
Mr. Snipes, I know you didn't actually own the Williams tract, is that correct?
No.
No, you wanted for your, I think, to buy as a residence and...
Wanted to renovate and preserve the building, but that agreement, while agreed to by the township, was then revoked by the township, so I dropped the lawsuit eventually.
Yeah.
But
And then they
Mr.
eventually sold it to
Clark
the
is
Montessori
correct.
school. So,
What
I mean,
about the
you're not-
swampy road, or the land that he wanted to trade us for that flat land, the only developable land in Falls?
Well, Ms. Kozlowski, if you were involved so intently, you should have been on the lookout for this, shouldn't you?
I was. I'm only one person. I can't fight all the thieves and liars in this place.
Well, you
Now, I'm
shouldn't.
telling you right now, I was involved, and when you say that it was brought up from time to time, it sure was, by me. But you wouldn't let me put it on the agenda, you wouldn't let it have a public discussion, and there were dozens of businessmen who said, I would have given $375,000 for that.
Wow.
I never saw the advertising, I never saw anything. I still say, if you peeled back all the veneer, you'd find a Snipes under there.
Well, Mrs. Kozlowski, the people who were on the board at the time that was sold were all members of people that you endorsed. So I
Oh,
would
those
assume-
were your buddies.
No, Mrs.
Those were, oh, come on, Harvey, you lie faster than horse would
Mrs.
trot.
Kozlowski.
Dorian Gray is showing again.
Mrs. Kozlowski, I'm sorry, but that's incorrect.
We're going
Go
to
ahead, Mr.
find out about it.
Yes,
We'll
I'm
have
sure.
a new board
We've been
here.
hearing that for 5 years. Go ahead.
Am I understanding the solicitor that you just need an appraisal and then that can be done private, a private sale?
No, it can't. It's illegal.
What's the procedure, Mr. Clark?
You can sell property as long as it is appraised, and it's an arm's length transaction. You can sell it as long as you sell it for the appraised amount.
You don't have to
auction. You don't have to auction
No,
property.
it doesn't have to be advertised or anything?
You can sell property.
It's just yes or no, either it does or it doesn't.
I'm not sure what you mean by advertising.
Philippines.
You have to- do you have
Advertised in
to-
the
No,
paper.
it doesn't have to be bid. You keep using this phrase sealed bids. I don't know what you're referring to.
You don't know what a sealed bid is?
Well, I don't know what you're referring to in this context. As long as you get an appraisal, you can sell it as if it's an arm's length transaction.
So in other words, Mr. Gray could get an appraisal and I could buy property from Mr. Gray? Without advertising?
Township property.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes?
But everything, Mr. Wilson, needs to be done in a public meeting. So
Yeah,
it was
provided
all out in the
the
public.
board has to
Okay.
approve it. We would have to approve the sale.
If I didn't know it happened, you know that it was done in a clandestine way, because I was watching the meetings.
The other thing that I wanted to bring up is the residents of Falls got a $100 rebate when you were running, Mr. Harvey. And we never got anything else. And I hear Mr. Snipes talk about the boat and everybody was all in favor of the boat. Gasoline for your car is $4 now. Home heating oil is $4.79 a gallon today. Okay? So I don't think there's going to be a lot of people using that. Why can't the residents get a rebate like Tellytown does? Why can't we have a picnic for the residents like Tellytown does? Why are we spending all this money on boat ramps that only benefits a few people?
Well, I beg to disagree. I'm sure there's a lot of people in Falls Township who have boats who are going to be anxious to use it, but we'll wait and see what kind of seasonal and daytime passes we sell, and maybe you're right. Maybe we'll see what happens once we start selling the
Well,
seasonal passes.
The $75 a season or the $150 a season is not going to support the cost and the upkeep of that. And to have police officers down there checking stickers on a boat trailers that's redundant.
We're going to be too in debt to turn around. Not in debt, they're spending our money, but they're not spending it on the right things. I'll tell you what, the campaign contributors to the people that have harmed this township and bought all the fancy frills that we can't afford, they get big contracts to do study after study after study. They never study the right stuff. That's what's wrong. And I have had the unpleasant task of being alone on this board, complaining about these things, and they have yet to put an item on the agenda. I'm in my 6th year of my 2nd term, and we don't have one item on this agenda. Mr. Zipka and I both requested that over the years. We gave up. But you want to know who's getting rich? The politicians who have political ambitions. And that's why I never ran for a higher office. I keep getting asked why I didn't run for Congress and all the things that I could and should have done. But who would do what I do for nothing? And that's why we're doing all these frills. And while you're at it, why don't you ask Mr. Snipes about those solar panels that he got? He always manages to keep his kindergarten lunch money.
Mr.
Thank you, Mr.
Chairman,
Wilson.
Mr. Chairman,
Thank you.
I just wanted to respond a bit to what Mr. Wilson said. I think the philosophy of this board has been to spend public funds on different projects that benefit different sectors of the community. So we've spent money on the road project, excuse me, spent money upgrading the public park from the community park down to tot lots. We've spent money on the dog park for dog owners. We've spent money on the senior center. We will on the senior citizen center for older residents. Now on the boat ramp for those who boat. So we've tried to look at the kinds of things that residents of the township have asked us to do. So it's not just focused on one group or one party in the township,
Right.
but across a broad spectrum of people. I think that's been the philosophy of the board, and I think we've been pretty successful at that.
Mr. Snipes, show $1 that you brought in,
Mrs.
so we can
Kozlowski.
trace it. Point to $1 that you or any member of this board was responsible for bringing to the citizens of Falls Township.
Mr. Chairman, could we
I
get
challenge you
back
to
on
point to
subject?
something. You can't do it because it didn't happen.
Thank you, Mr. Wilson. Mrs. Kozlowski, you're on the clock here.
One of the things.
Mr. Wilson, your 5 minutes is up.
Well, that's because you were.
No,
Mrs.
Yeah, we
that's
were-
because your friend, Mrs. Kozlowski, was using up all your time.
He is
So,
my friend, and I'm certainly
what I'm-
proud to say
It's
it.
fine. But, Mr. Wilson,
What I'm saying is the
Go ahead, continue with your
residents
attacks. Go ahead.
would know how to spend the money better themselves than having you. Not everybody has a dog, not everybody has a boat, and I think they would know how to spend their money better.
But most of them have children.
Right.
And one other suggestion before I go is, are you still planning the sidewalks up New Falls Road?
We're still discussing the options that we heard a couple months ago, trying to come maybe to some consensus about what we'd like to see happen.
Because St. Joe's is closed, right?
Well, we understand that, but,
Yeah,
that's
but I mean,
not the only issue I see kids every day walking back and forth, going to and from school, usually from school.
Right.
So, I mean, I see people almost every day walking on that path or riding bikes.
If I can
so-
suggest to you that instead of this donating a tree in lieu of planting a tree or donating the money, maybe start a sidewalk fund, and then you could start putting the sidewalks in where you deem them
I
necessary.
believe we have that already.
So we have a sidewalk. Do we have something similar to that, Mr. Gray, in terms of sidewalks? No, No, we don't. No, it's just with the trees.
Trees.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
and
okay.
The trees don't fare too well on a parkway, so.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I hope you're not endorsing the sidewalks on New Falls, Mr. Wilson, because most of the residents are alarmed about it.
No, I'm not, because I don't know where they would go.
All right.
Thank you.
Ms. Kozlowski? Just
Yeah,
reminded you that you-
I touched on something that I wanted to know about. Mr. Snipes talked about getting a $25,000 grant to put solar panels on his property. I think that's using his public position to enrich himself.
Mr. Chairman.
Now, wait,
I'm gonna
I'm not,
need to
this,
I'm just going to need
this
to lay
is my,
out
you
the
can
facts
talk
of
after
these-
my 5 minutes are up.
Because this has got nothing to do with township business, but I'd invite
Mr.
anyone,
Sni-
I would invite
Stop that
anyone to
talk.
Snipes Farm to see what we're doing, to see alternative energy. You
I
can
got a
visit
new
with
one
of the
for you,
school groups
Mr.
we have.
Snipes.
We'd be
Just
happy
wait-
to have you come and see exactly
He's talking
what we
in my
have.
5 minutes.
Well, you make it
That's
happen
what
with
you
that.
do all the time.
It's an
You do it.
invitation. I'm
waiting
offering you
for
an invitation.
Her nibs to walk in here and launch some stupid lie next.
Will you
Now, I wanna
accept an
tell you this.
invitation to visit and see our panels?
No, I don't want to
Have you
touch
come
your
anytime.
property. Now,
I'd be happy
here's
to
what
have
I
you
want to
come
ask you
anytime.
about. Where is the money that you should be paying for those commercials that you use our public access channel for? Everyone asks me that, and I say, I've never seen a check. He still has his kindergarten lunch money,
Are you
and he
asking,
uses
are you
this
asking a
position.
specific question?
I'm saying that I called our township treasurer, and I said, do we get money? Because if Snipes isn't paying for those commercials, then I'm going to announce that everyone in Falls Township who has something they want to sell, contact Mr. Gray and go ahead and advertise it on our public access
Are you
channel.
aware that Snipes Farm and Education Center is a nonprofit organization
Mr.
serving
Snipes,
the residents of
I know
Falls
your
Township?
father.
Are
He
you
was
aware-
the
are you
solicitor
aware
in
this is a
Falls when I got
nonprofit?
involved, and he's the reason I stayed involved for 47 years.
and he will be
My father
featured
is
grandly.
92 years old. There's no
Yes,
point
yes.
in attacking
That's all right.
him here
The
in
apple
evening
didn't
tonight.
fall far from the tree, did it?
If you'd like to visit our nonprofit
I
and
want
see
my
the
5
activities
minutes.
we
So
do,
you're going to put a cork in his mouth and let me have my 5 minutes, or I'm going to continue to talk about the things
No,
that
please-
from my vantage
please don't
point
take
here
up our time.
on this board, I'm not allowed to ask who's paying for those commercials, because I give a lot of money to charity, and probably more than you do. Operation Smile is one of my best charities, but I take care of people. I don't look to make the dollars, but every time I turn over a rock, there's a snipe's profit happening, and I think people need to watch, because you should not have access to our channel for your business. And I'm saying that we need to do something about that here, and if we don't, then perhaps the Lord will smile on us, and we'll have board members who will be able to be a majority and clean up some of the rotten stuff that goes on behind the scenes here. The first year I got on this board in this second session was whenever you were paying $45,000 to that solicitor for meeting down, and that was just totally outrageous. That got stopped, but I happen to know that certain people do meet with him secretly anyhow, and he's not donating to the people of Falls Township. We're paying dearly for it. And there's a lot of stuff happening. 3 to 2 affects every resident in this township. 3 to 2. This board needs to be changed, and they still can't show $1 where any of them brought anything here. The man that sits there now is the one that started us to get out of debt, because you hated the dump. I was not on the board. I was living in Makefield. I gave up politics in Falls. And then I realized that if Waste Management sued us for not giving an expansion, then we would be in deep trouble, because we were already $32 million in debt. And I called Alan Wilson and I asked him if he would come to a meeting at my house. The board had adjourned for the year. It was about December 16th or something around that time. And he said, there can't be another meeting because they closed it. Their buddies that elected them. And so I asked Alan if he would just come and listen. So I got the head man from Waste Management to come to my house in Lower Makefield. And I said, I would like you to discuss what you want in that expansion thing. And Alan was there, very negative about it, and negotiating on behalf of Falls Township. And Jay Rooney was there negotiating on behalf of Waste Management, and I was there as the mediator. I did not speak. I let those two fight it out. Well, Alan belongs to the Teamsters Union, and I can tell you he was a Teamster, because he got them to agree to buy that horrendous Taj Mahal that their corrupt club bought. I've been fighting that Democratic club for all these 47 years, and I am a Democrat. I'm just ashamed of the Democratic club and the things that they do. And you brought Obama here, and you're still beating the dead horse, trying to pretend like KOIZ was a good thing. Shame on you. Look at the Comcast building down in Center City. Look at that, KOIZ. Look at our Mesa. They're out in Cambria County, but we're still lying to the President of the United States and telling him what a great and wonderful thing KOIZ is. I did the research on it. None of you could even discuss it articulately. It's disgusting.
Okay, thank you for those enlightening comments. Mr. Reese.
Okay, good evening. I just have a couple announcements. I just wanted to mention the annual Team Pasta Dinner that we had a few weeks ago. We had a great turnout. It was the most people we've ever had come out. I just want to thank a few people and the groups, of course, the Falls Township Teen Advisory Panel, the LIFT Youth Group, and also a special thank you to the Girl Scout Troop number 2552. Those three groups We had probably close to 40 volunteers that night, and they were waitressing, waitering, they were helping bring the food out, they were getting beverages for everybody, they were cleaning up, and they just did a wonderful job. And I'm happy to say that this year's beneficiary is going to be a woman's place, and they're going to be getting a check for $437.77, and that is net. I mean, that's a revenue minus the expenses. So this is the most money that we're going to be able to give to a beneficiary. So the kids are to be congratulated for that. And also, I just want to thank the people who did the cooking. It was Gary Sanderson, Debbie Mortier, Ralph Ashman, Pete Kelly, and Jenna Russo. So I just wanted to mention that. And the other thing is, as people probably do know by now, the Parks Recreation Department has taken over the staffing of Pinewood Pool. We continue to do interviews and things along that line. So I just want to announce, if anyone is still interested in being a lifeguard or assistant pool manager, to please stop by the Township building Monday through Friday between 8:30 a.m. and 4:30 p.m. to fill out an employment application. But please don't wait, because we're getting down to it now. So if anybody's interested, please call us. And any more information about that, you can call 215-949-9000, extension 220, 221, or 222.
Okay. Thank you,
I need to respond to that. Mr. Gray, I wish to have, in this coming week, the amount of money we pay his family and what he pays for rent for 3 Arches that I sued Danhurst for, and I want to know all of the perks, and I want it in writing so I can double-check it. He comes here and does commercials. I did more to get that Pinewood pool open than anybody.
Let's try and have a little perspective. The gentleman's here announcing the fact that they held.
He's finished.
Excuse me. One of the most successful times that ever with the Teen Advisory Panel, something they pulled off pretty much all by themselves, these kids of this township who decided to do this. They've done it for a couple of years now. I went to last year's, I went to this year's. This year's was an overwhelming success.
Yes.
A couple $100 given to a woman's place to help women who
Means a
need
lot to them.
that kind of shelter. And I think probably we should be congratulating him and thanking him for the work he did. And to thank all those volunteers.
Yes.
I think that's really what we should do. Mr. Reese,
Exactly.
thank you very much for all the work you do.
Mr. Reese.
And the work that you've been doing on the Pinewood Pool as well as with
When we were having one of the tea parties at 3 Arches, and Congressman now Fitzpatrick was the main speaker. He was there as a county commissioner. And Fitzpatrick made a speech. He was the keynote speaker. And he said, I don't believe all of you here realize that this 3 Arches would be a pile of rocks and rubble if Dorothy Vislowski had not sued Danhurst Corporation for this building. When he had concluded his comments and walked up toward the building, Mr. Harvey got a hold of him and reamed him another body orifice for daring to give me credit for having done that. And it has been that way all along. They've taken the money brought in by other people, and they've taken credit for it. Anybody would like to have your job because it's a total vacation all the time. Arranging trips.
That's enough.
Put
Have
the
some
gavel
respect
in
for
your
somebody
nostril.
Who actually does work.
Put the gavel
How
in
many
your
houses
nostril.
do you own?
How many houses do I own?
It's a simple question. It
Well,
shouldn't
that's
be hard
very
to answer.
easy. When Snipes tells me, and
How many houses
are
do you
you
own?
inferring that my houses were?
How many houses do you own? It's a simple question. I own one. Mr. Dent's one?
Well, that
Assuming?
doesn't. That.
How many houses do you own?
Listen, I own my cemetery lots in Makefield. I own a house in Makefield. I paid $150,000 for it, and I own the building that the township sold, and I own my 725 Trenton Road house. That's what I own, and that is none of your business because you are doing your normal shuffle.
You forgot
the
about the
pea
house
under
in
the
Florida.
Well, that's the house that the tornado blew away on the 31st.
And Kirby? The Kirby house?
The Kirby house belongs to Jan.
Okay, so 4
All right,
houses.
now, no. I'm asking you, are you suggesting that those houses were gotten by ill-gotten things? Because if you're insulting my integrity, you're going to find your rear end in court.
Go ahead.
You're going to need somebody smart to advise you.
Now, because I was smart enough to buy a house for
Anyone else?
$60,000 in Florida.
Any other public comment?
Oh, yes.
See a couple hands.
Mr.
Dell.
lying Dorian Gray here.
Mr. Dell.
I'm not taking it anymore, but you'll read about it and how you got snookered.
Sure.
Recently, you awarded the township landscape.
I'm sorry, you had to repeat that, Mrs.
I'm sorry. Recently, you awarded the township landscaping bid.
Yes.
The three arches, I haven't seen that up on the agenda. I know they need to start at the pretty much the same. We should be starting that mulching and cleaning up the place. And I've never gotten any approval for this year, and I didn't want it to languish too long because the place is going to start looking overgrown.
The agreement with Three Arches is such that we do the maintenance on the area outside the fence, is that correct?
Outside the fence, I believe it is, yes.
All right. And Mr. Reese and his wife are responsible for what's inside the fence?
Yes, I believe that's correct.
All right, so it's no longer really as much a township. Outside the fence would be a township property, inside the fence would be the
so a
Reese's.
change then?
Yes.
Okay, I was unaware of that. Yeah. Okay, because I didn't see it on any of the agenda. I said, you awarded the other landscape proposal, and I didn't see anything for the mulching and the spring cleanup and all that stuff. So they're responsible for everything inside the fence now?
Right.
On a personal
Yes.
level? Okay, thank you.
Okay. Hmm? Any other people interested? Yes, Mrs. Snipes?
Oh, good.
Melanie Doty Snipes, Falls Township. I came tonight because this is my township board. I hadn't been to a meeting for a while, and it's my duty as a resident to come to meetings once in a while.
And you were cussing me in the restroom at your last meeting.
My time. This is my time, Mrs. Vislowski.
Then
and
tell
you
your
do
husband
nothing.
when it's
You
my
do
time,
nothing
but
but
he shouldn't
interrupt.
do that.
Until Mrs.
He should
Vislowski.
not.
Okay, we'll call our meeting back to order, 8:43. Mrs. Snipes?
Yes, I began this morning with a group of 50 children who visited Snipes Farm and Education Center. They are just one group of children from 5 different school districts that come and learn about how food is grown on a sustainable farm. We grow organic vegetables. We have pick your own fruit. We have chickens. We have horses. We do something that is wholesome and healing, and we are so grateful for the opportunity through our nonprofit to be building community. And that is what we do at Snipes Farm and Education Center. And as I was saying before, I came tonight because I wanted to support my township board and be interested in local issues, and I just wanted to be with my fellow citizens and just take an interest. I did not intend to speak this evening, and I'm just sorry that such a large percentage of our meeting is spent in such a negative, nasty air, and I'm thinking of the bigger issues that facing our nation. Just before I came to the meeting, I read something online that 30,000 people are fasting because of the federal budget cuts that are going to impact veterans and school children and the elderly. Across our nation, it is just terrible what is happening. And so there are so many great matters at hand that we need to pull together and face together as a community, positively, problem solving, collaborating. We need to be positive together. And that's what I need from my township meetings. That's what I need from my township board, is people working together. And I'm just, I don't like getting pushed to the extent that it led me to raise my voice. I am really pulling for us all, pulling for this community and all the communities across this nation to find solutions to problems together, to choose sustainable solutions. And so I'm grateful for all the ways that the board has moved us forward, and look forward to new projects in the future. And that's all I have.
Thank you.
You could
Okay,
donate
we're,
some of the profit
we're gonna
to the
move on.
starving
Mrs.
people.
Kozlowski.
No,
We're gonna
this
move
is
on.
nothing but hogwash.
No, Mrs.
Yes, it
yes,
is.
Yes, you are nothing
She-
but hogwash. That's right.
Yes, I am. And so is that redhead on the end of the thing. She's here to save him.
Item 6 is our engineer's report. Let's get back to business. Thank you for those who spoke.
Someone tells what you're doing, even though you don't let them have the forum. It will come out.
Mr. Sullivan, any highlights from the engineer's report?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As we discussed earlier, the boat ramp is nearing completion. The electrical work has begun today with the electrical poles going in, and the wiring for the kiosk and the security cameras will be completed in the next week or so. The docks, floating docks, are actually scheduled to start being delivered tomorrow. They should be completed delivery by Friday and then installed early next week. At that point, the boat ramp will be very close to being ready to actually open.
Okay. Comments or questions for Mr. Sullivan regarding the engineer's report? Mr. Zupka?
None.
Mrs. Kozlowski?
No, but I want to make a motion that we put the Williams Tract on the agenda right after the election. Prove that you want to see everything out in the open.
Mr. Snipes?
We'll not get it done.
On the boat ramp, I was wondering if we have a potential opening date. I know this is the big question, but I wonder if Mr. Sullivan could enlighten us.
No, I'll stick with the end of April at this point.
Because I know I'd like to see us have a nice celebration for that. It's been a long time coming, and we thank you, Mr. Sullivan, for your work. And we need to plan something nice for that day.
Yep. Okay. Mr. Dents?
Yes.
How about the road program, Mr. Sullivan? How's that going down there on Alden Avenue?
Road program is going along fairly well. PECO decided they had to relocate another gas main right at the intersection of Alden Avenue and West Trenton. That slowed that part of the project down a little bit, but it's moving along as well as can be expected at this time.
Has that already been moved, the gas main, or in the process?
I don't believe it has. I think it's still in process.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, and I don't have anything. Okay. Motion to accept the engineer's report as presented, dated, it's the March 2011 engineering report, dated April 8th, 2011.
So moved.
Seconded.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Okay. Bill list, April 5th, 2011. Bill list in the amount of $1,743,959.58. Of that, approximately $940,000 of the $1.7 million is for payroll and health insurance. Another $45,000 for electricity, as well as the boat ramp and the road program are also big ticket items here, averaging about $200,000 each. And obvious other things, everything from diesel fuel to portable toilet rentals for the park. Comments or questions regarding the bill list? Mr. Zupka?
None.
Mrs. Kozlowski?
It falls on deaf ears. I have none, but I'm objecting to the way you spend the money I brought into this township.
Okay. Mr. Snipes?
No, Mr. Chairman. Thanks once again to Mrs. Rukoff and her staff for doing an excellent job in our accounting office, our business office.
Mr. Dents?
No comments.
Okay. And I have none. All right, so a motion to accept or pay the bills, $1,743,959.58.
So moved.
Seconded.
Mrs. Pullen?
Mr. Zupka?
No.
Mrs. Kozlowski?
No.
Mr. Harvey?
Yes.
Mr. Dents?
Yes.
Mr. Snipes?
Yes.
Okay, up to manager comment. Mr. Gray?
Yes, just a few items tonight, Mr. Chairman. The first item I have is from a letter from Mr. Richard J. Lamonowitz dated April 1st, representing 9188 New Falls Road, Liberty Towers, requesting extension on time for this project until July 31st, 2011. Board is asked to consider this extension.
Okay, comments or questions from board members?
None.
Excuse me. If not, is there a motion to approve the letter of extension to July 31st, 2011 for the Liberty Towers LLC?
So moved.
Motion made. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
My next item is a message from the Falls Township Police Department. The Falls Township Police Department will be participating in the National Take Back Day. This is to provide a venue for persons who want to dispose of unwanted and unused prescription drugs. The National Prescription Drug Take Back Day event is scheduled on Saturday, April 30th, 2011, from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. This is a great opportunity for those who have subsequently accumulated unwanted, unused prescription drugs to safely dispose of them. The program is completely anonymous. No questions or requests for identification will be made. Sharpies and syringes will not be accepted due to the potential hazard posed by bloodborne pathogens. Any further questions, please call Corporal Mike Wolverton at 215-949-9130. And finally, just a few announcements from the Park and Rec Department. The annual Easter egg hunt will be held on Saturday, April 16th at the Falls Township Community Park, Phase 1 Pavilion, starting at 1 p.m. Otto the Clown and the Balloon Man will be on hand, as well as the Easter Bunny. The rain date is Sunday, April 17th at 1 p.m. The annual Breakfast with the Bunny event will be held on Saturday, April 23rd, on the grounds of the Three Arches under the big tent from 10 a.m. to 12 noon. There will be children's games, craft tables, DJ, pancakes, a visit from the Easter Bunny, plus much more. There is no rain date for this event. For more information, please call the Park and Rec Department at 215-949-9000, extension 220, 221, or 222. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you.
Otto the Clown and the Balloon Man, they're not the same person?
I believe they're two separate individuals.
Are we sure? And Easter Bunny too?
Yes.
Okay. Always nice when Easter Bunny comes. He pays a couple special visits to Falls Township. We're glad to have him. He's busy around this time of year. All right, board comment. We'll begin with Mr. Snipes.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. A couple things. I was glad that we were able to move forward on our decisions about the boat ramp and its policies this evening. I know residents of the township have been waiting a long time for the opening of the ramp. We don't have a firm date for that yet, but I'm sure it's coming soon. And as I said before, I think it's wonderful that Falls Township will have, and we are adding the facilities people can experience that other communities have as well, and we as Falls Township residents deserve them as well. So we can look forward to that. Also, at our last meeting, we had the great opportunity to have the Men of Harmony here and actually singing in our meeting, the first time I can remember people singing in the meeting, which was a great experience, I think, for all of us. And we didn't have that for them at the time, but we have a proclamation from the Board of Supervisors acknowledging their, I believe, 60 years of singing and service in the community. I won't read the whole award, and this will be given to representatives from the Men of Harmony, but I did want to read the last bit, which says, "Now therefore be it resolved that the Board of Supervisors of the Township of Falls, on behalf of the citizens of Falls Township, does hereby issue this proclamation to the members, both past and present, of the Men of Harmony, expressing its sincere congratulations and gratitude for its 60 years of dedication and service to the community, and hopes for many more decades of successful service and dedication." And that's signed by our chairman, Bob Harvey. So we'll pass that along to them, and thank you, Mr. Harvey, for writing that. The only last thing I wanted to say was there was a comment that about the use of our public access channel by nonprofits for advertising their activities, which this board has supported and will continue to support. Snipes Farm and Education Center is one of those nonprofit 501c3 organizations serving the community that does announce its activities on the site, and will continue to do that. And we hope that people will see that and know about our upcoming activities. We'll be serving school children this spring, next fall, also summer camps. We'd be happy to have anyone contact us, and please contact for a tour. We'll tour you, give you a tour of the facilities, and show you anything you'd like to see, from the alternative energy that we're using to the sustainable agriculture, and how we approach educating the next generation about where our food comes from and healthy nutrition for healthy lives. Just got passed a note that we need to make a motion to approve the proclamation that I read. So I'll do that, to make a motion that the board approve this proclamation to the Men of Harmony.
Second the motion.
All right, motion made and seconded to approve the proclamation thanking the Men of Harmony for their 60 years of service to not just Falls Township, Bucks County. Motion made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll make sure they get this.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Mrs. Wisłowski?
This is the board comment now?
Yes, it is.
Good. I'd like it to be reflected in the minutes that we place the Williams track on the agenda for discussion with advance notice to those business people in the public who are interested, be given the opportunity to be here and ask the questions they have asked me. The second thing I would like to do is have the public access channel be made available to Dorothy Wisłowski, who will donate all of the proceeds to Operation Smile. And that's where Dr. William McGee, a friend of mine, who was on a national program with my grandson, who also is a miracle baby, but God spared his life. He had 7 surgeries in the womb. And I want to support that charity, and I do. And so I would like to sell all of my belongings and depart for Florida ultimately, but I've got all these magnificent properties that I own. And we've forgotten that the Snipes had tax-free parcels for all these years. I'd like to have that on the agenda too. So now you're not allowed to interrupt me. You be a gentleman, because I'm being a lady.
When you lie, he's going to interrupt you.
No, you lie. You lie. You're the biggest liars. People follow me because they know I don't lie, and that's what bothers you. Now, as for all these properties that I own, my husband was an accountant. He had his degree in accounting, and he worked at U.S. Steel as a cost analyst. And John managed to save our resources for us. I still don't balance my checkbook, but I can tell you this. John was brilliant in handling our resources, but our Fairless Hills home that I own cost us $11,150. And then the house that Chief Kirby owned was purchased back in when Jan got out of college and she wanted a place to live. We bought that for $53,000. And then I own cemetery lots, and I paid $60 for those. It's 8 graves out at the Marsville Yardley Cemetery. I paid $60,000 for Handyman Special down in Florida, where I sent my file cabinets so that I can write books to tell you what all these people have stolen and how they misused our money. And I also would ask them, now that I've revealed my holding. My house in Lower Makefield cost $150,000, and I used John's insurance to purchase that. And about 6 months after I paid $150,000, someone wanted to buy it for $300,000. I think that was a pretty good deal. I still own it; it's unoccupied, but the liars claim that I live out there. And I tried to explain to them that the sewer and water is turned off. And sewer and water in a dwelling unit is as vital as veins and arteries are to the human body. You can't use either. If you have no veins and arteries in your body, you're dead. And if you don't have sewer and water in the house, you can't be living there. And another big lie from your buddies was that I have 2 illegal children in the elementary school in Pennsbury. And of course, that isn't true. I'm 81, and if I had elementary school age children, then I would owe Pennsbury thousands of dollars if they were illegal. But Mr. de Blasio, who evidently hasn't looked at a map and knows Pennsbury's boundaries, if I had 10 children in each of those properties, then they'd still be legal because they're all in the Pennsbury School District. So that's the kind of blatant, stupid lies that I've been subjected to all along. Recently, I had Mr. Harvey accuse me of not liking parks, but those individuals that are more than 60 years old remember that what got me involved in public life was suing for 3 Arches, the senior center, Lake Caroline, all the parkland, the swimming pool, the golf course, and 3 Arches. And that is parks, because Danhurst was going to build on all of our parks. The community park, which they have other people's names on, that was started through me in my negotiations with Waste Management, and they offered me the community park for $1. That was the first time the community park was ever mentioned. Now that is my biggest real estate bargain of all. So I've challenged these people to show where they ever brought $1 into this township, just $1. Alan Wilson and I did that agreement in my dining room in the Makefield house, and that yielded $95 million to this township. And I say it, and it's documented, and they can shout from the rooftops and do everything they can to try to get me stirred up, but the facts are provable. There are axioms and there are theorems. And this is an axiom, it can't be erased. And then the second, the 2001 agreement, brought in all the money we're enjoying now. That 95 agreement has expired, and the next one kicked in. Not one bit of profit for the Vislowskis. But there are some people in this township who, no matter what they do, they expect to have a profit, and they have political ambitions. I prove that. I don't have any ambitions in 47 years. I'm still down running for school board, which pays nothing. And I'm doing it because I made a solemn promise to the people that if they elected McElhenney and Fitzpatrick, that I would come back and do one more election, and that's where I am, school board, and we're going to accomplish that. So all the shouting and carrying on that took place at this meeting is just the way to distract the public's attention from the real truth. And the way you can do the truth is you get it on the agenda, and then let's see what the real facts show, the provable facts. But it's asinine to tell me, you said you were going to bring proofs. I am. I'm writing books. I have 12 of them in partial stages of completion. And I've got a lot of good stories in there and all the documentation. But I'd like to see something legally done, because some of the stuff that's been done in this township, I'm beginning to wonder if there shouldn't be people in jail. And I said my say for the night.
Mr. Dents?
No comment, thank you.
Mr. Zupka?
Once a year, we get an opportunity to really thank our police officers. And these are the fellows that are out there every day, whether it's traffic issues, or as we heard this evening, a few lives are saved. Officers went in and risked their own lives looking for an armed suspect. They put themselves in harm's way. We really have to, I believe, support our police department. Yeah, we're probably not always happy, with some of the we'll say the laws, but they don't make the laws. They're just there to enforce it, and our officers do. I feel they do a great job. Seeing Officer Jonathan Caesar this evening, I met him probably a little over 18 years ago, and I mentioned it to him this evening, and he really doesn't remember it. But and I'm going to single him out a little bit, because I shook his hand and I touched his arm. That man's got some big guns up on the top of his arm. I couldn't even put my hands around his arm. I don't think I would want to be on the wrong side of him. Gentleman was speaking about the soccer fields. If anybody's ever gone over there to watch their children or relatives, and whether it's a Sunday or any other day, but you go by there, and the children are having so much fun. And when we originally envisioned this park, I know the soccer fields were a big deal, and they still are. We really need to look at what needs to be done to keep them, we'll say, being a first class, to keep it being a first class facility. many years ago, I played soccer in a place called Cahockson Field in Philadelphia. It wasn't even dirt; it was cinders. So it was really interesting when you had to go down on the cinders. You'd be picking them out of your knees and your elbows for a while. But the sport has gotten bigger and bigger, especially with the youngsters over, I'm going to say, the past 10 years. So let's spend some of our money where I think it's going to do a lot of good. I mean, if we actually have to dig up a couple fields and rebuild them every couple years, get them raised up, get them so they drain, and be able to keep them flat. But this is something. I mean, if you go over there, it looks like there's, and again, it's an exaggeration. It looks like there's 1,000 little kids are running around, boys and girls, but they're enjoying themselves. They're getting the exercise, seeing the parents that are there, acting as referees and coaches. It helps keep the family together. So we need to look at that and do it soon. Other than that, everyone have a good evening. Have a good Easter.
Okay, thank you. I want to echo that point Mr. Zupka just raised. Next week starts Passover, so for those residents of Falls Township who are Jewish, wish them a happy Passover. Easter obviously follows that, and so for all those, we heard some of the things will be going on in Falls Township this weekend, celebrating that holiday. So for all the residents of Falls Township, hope you have a happy Easter. One of the things we've neglected to mention regarding the boat ramp, what we're going to do is people register for season passes. We don't quite have the stickers ready yet, but we can start the process of people, and then we can mail the stickers out later once we get those in. But what we're going to be doing for people that are putting in for season passes, we're going to be taking your names, and we're going to have a drawing eventually to find out who the first boat is going to be, in terms of first boater, rather, to put their boat in. First. Yeah, I think it's a nice thing, just sort of a groundbreaking or ribbon cutting, that kind of thing, just to see who the first person is who can be able to put their boat in at the Quaker Penn boat ramp. So, again, the rates will be $75 for township residents and $150 for non-township residents. I'm hoping, as I'm saying this, Mr. Gray, I should check with you first. I'm hoping we're able to start processing that stuff tomorrow.
I'll start working on it, yes.
Okay. All right, sorry to put you on it again like that. Also want to make mention of the St. Joe's Carnival. St. Joseph Worker Church on New Falls Road is having their annual carnival. Begins on April 27th. There's a couple wristband nights, I believe. I want to say Tuesdays, Thursday, and Saturday afternoon, I think, but don't quote me on that. And wristbands, of course, you're paying one price. You get a wristband. You can ride as much as you want between a certain set, period of time. It's always a lot of fun, always a great turnout. Hopefully the weather holds out. And so come on out and support the carnival. Have some fun that night. And it reminds me, talking about the police officers who are here, as well as the people who put in all the work for that carnival to happen, the volunteers who do all the different hundreds of things that have to get done for that event, and for all the other people. We have, between the police officers, the volunteer firefighters, the rescue squads, the people who volunteered, worked with elementary schools, as Mr. Snipes and his family do, and as well as the gentleman who was here earlier this evening who helped start the Fall Soccer Club, which is a very, very big success, as Mr. Zupka has said. There are a lot of people in this township who have helped to make it what it is. It's certainly not just the people up here, and I hope that we keep sight of that over the past, over the centuries. Really, this township has been around, especially over the past several decades. We want to make sure that we recognize the fact that there are a lot of people, most of whom, they don't get any name recognition. They don't get their name in the paper. They don't get. Nobody really knows much about what they do except for the people right around them, and they like it that way. They don't do it for attention. They do it because it makes them feel good. They like making their community even better. We have one actual individual this evening who put their name in, Ms. Lynn Arnoldy, who submitted a letter or an email a few weeks ago to the township interested in being on the Park and Rec Board, and I spoke to her yesterday, or was it yesterday? Yeah, that was yesterday actually. And she is interested in being a volunteer. She wants to help out her community. She currently works for the county as a caseworker for a DPW and is interested in helping out. And I wanted to know, Mr. Gray, we have a couple of vacancies on Park and Rec, is that correct?
Yes, I believe there's at least one. I don't have that information with me right now, but at least there is one.
Okay. Well, I think I know a couple members have stepped down recently, Ms. Scheider and Ms. Jones. So I'm assuming maybe there might be two openings. If not, there was only one. That's easy. We'll just appoint her to that one opening. If not, maybe if there's two openings, let's maybe look to appoint Ms. Arnoldi if the board feels comfortable doing so, appointing her to the longer of the two terms that are vacant. If that's acceptable to anybody, we'll.
Acceptable to me.
All right. Is anybody, absolutely. I'll make the motion then to appoint Ms. Arnoldi to the Park and Rec Board.
I'll second it.
Okay. Motion made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. But people like this, and also Mr. Ed Wells, who was a member of the Cable Advisory Board, had to resign due to illness, but is interested in getting back on now. His health has improved. He was on the board for a long time and wants to go back on. There are two full vacancies, and so I'll make a motion to reappoint Mr. Wells to the Cable Advisory Board.
I'll second it.
Okay. Motion made and seconded. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay. And I know there's another young lady who sent in a letter to be appointed to a board. I've had a conversation with her, and she wanted to have some discussion with the people that are on that board, so I gave her the phone numbers, and she's going to reach out to them and then get back to us. But it's easy to lose sight of the people that do this kind of volunteer thing. And I think all of us need to thank them when we get a chance to see them for all the work they do making this township as great as it is. Doesn't mean we can't be better. Doesn't mean that everybody's perfect. We know they're not. But we give people credit for trying and for doing it for the right reasons, doing it for other people, not just for themselves. And I think for the most part that's true of the people that really have helped to make this township great. So I want to keep that in mind, something I was thinking of sort of all night as we started off with our police officers and end with some volunteers to some of our boards, to keep in mind those people that really put the community first. And that's really what matters. So with that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Thank you.